Well, Max Purcell serving a provisional suspension by the International Tennis Integrity Agency. He unknowingly received an IV infusion of vitamins above the allowable limit of 100 milliliters. Turned himself in for this. And for that, his doubles partner, Thompson, said, quote, he took too much in an IV bag. To get suspended for that, when there are other people who've done far worse and sometimes just get a slap on the wrist, it's a bit of a joke. All right, what do you think about that, Prakash? Is he getting a fair shake? What do we think?
A couple of different issues. One, I don't necessarily think IVs should be banned. A lot of other sports are using IVs all the time. Here, he was just trying to get fluids and vitamins in there. You could take it orally, you could be drinking water, you could be taking pills, you're allowed to do that, but you can't take an IV, which is the quickest way to get in there. So that's one separate discussion, whether that should be allowed or not. Do you ban all pills just because you're worried something might be contaminated? But then on the second side of it, he got a little bit extra, and he was honest enough to go and communicate it. He's serving a suspension now. There are players who haven't communicated if something wrong has happened, so he's now being penalized for that. It doesn't feel right, what's going on here, especially considering it's an IV, vitamins, and so forth.
I think there's been so much murky waters in tennis as far as it comes to the anti-doping. We've seen it in a couple of our top players, Sinner and Iga Swiatek are two biggest names that have been hit recently. And from Max's Instagram post, he said he told the IV clinic how much he could actually take, and they just didn't listen to him. So unfortunately, it's always problematic when you're always trusting in other people's hands. And I think it's very unfair for Max Purcell to be hit as hard as he may potentially be hit when others have been quiet and have not come out and come forward saying, hey, I've made a mistake, I'm ready to pay the price for it. I think that shows the character that is Max Purcell. And I think there's nothing to knock there. I think there's just more murky waters and more discussion to be had of our anti-doping agencies.
Speaking of murky waters, and another point that Andy Roddick brought up on his Serve podcast is what is performance enhancing and what is not. If you got 0.001% of something, is that performance enhancing? Here, it's fluids and vitamins.
Right.
How much is that performance enhancing versus whether you take it orally? So again, there's just a lot of more clarity we need as to where we can look in these situations.
No, I
mean, there's a limit. It was 100 milliliters. He told the people, this is what I can do. They gave him more than that. He was very transparent about everything. And that is what a lot of folks, including Nick Kyrgios and Novak Djokovic, are complaining about, the transparency.
Right.
In this instance, it was all transparent, yet he's still being suspended for it, whereas in those other cases, Sinner and Swiatek, not a lot of transparency, and those suspensions, they're allowed to play the Australian
And this
Open.
point, to your point, not through his own negligence.
Correct.